It's my breakdown of Shevchenko versus Carmouche 2. I wasn't around this weekend, so that's why this one's a bit late. I had to catch up on everything today. I was at a wedding in the Bay Area last weekend, so I wasn't able to watch the fights live, so that's why this is a little bit late. But anyway, it's better late than never. So full disclosure, I knew all of the results as I was watching it, which may affect the way you see things. But anyway, starting from the bottom, Enrique Barzola versus Bobby Moffatt. One thing about Moffatt, man, when I worked for M1, I dealt with fighters from a lot of different countries, and it was kind of this team format or whatever. And one thing, even when we talk to European fighters, you ask them about American fighters. What's the one thing that stands out to you about American fighters? And they say, God, they're gigantic. They are just gigantic. And the Barzola versus Moffatt fight, that really leapt out at me. Moffatt was so much bigger than Barzola, and he was having a lot of success early in the fight, kind of being the bully and moving forward well and making the octagon very small for Barzola. I thought Barzola started figuring out the timing and finding his opportunities to land strikes, was able to get a couple takedowns, wasn't able to hold Moffatt down for any length of time, but his timing started getting better. Very good back and forth fight. I thought it was extremely competitive, could have gone either way. It went Barzola's way, but based on that ability to find the holes in Moffat's defense as he was coming forward, almost all on the feet, good timing, good striking, good effort. I like the combinations of Barzola. Moffatt looked good, and he was great when he was stalking forward and, once again, making the octagon small, but he couldn't really do that for 15 minutes at a stretch. There were times when Barzola was just able to find the right counterpunching opportunities and made the most of it. Rodolfo Vieira versus Oscar Pejota. Pejota, the thing about him is he was supposed to have to keep this fight standing in order to win. Rodolfo Vieira, if you don't know, world champion jiu-jitsu, ADCC champ, phenomenal jiu-jitsu. Great black belt, world level, one of the best in the world. Pejota, very well-rounded, brings a lot of good things, good rangy striking, generally speaking. When Vieira started off with a really good jab, and the first punch I noticed out of this fight was he snapped Pejota's head back with a jab. I like the message that sent to Pejota. You're not just going to own me on the feet. It's going to be kickboxer versus grappler. I'm diving for a bunch of stupid takedowns. What I liked is Vieira's striking looked pretty good. I thought Pejota looked a little bit better, but Vieira looked pretty good. You're not going to be able to focus on one thing, takedown defense, and beat me. Getting back to your feet, jiu-jitsu escapes. You're going to have to deal with me on the feet. He was efficient with the takedowns. He didn't try for a bunch of them that he wasn't going to get. His striking looked good, not great, but good. Hands high, good foot movement, stayed behind the jab, threw decent power shots. Once again, Oscar Pejota a little bit better, but in jiu-jitsu, Vieira is here. So my striking just has to be a little bit better to give you something to think about, to let you know I'm not going to be a pushover, to make you worry about other aspects of my game. All of these things. So the interesting thing to me is Vieira, to me, won the jiu-jitsu match by having decent striking, by being efficient with his wrestling. And as soon as he got Oscar Pejota down in the second round, I figured it was over. Now, Pejota able to get back to his feet, but what you have to remember about a style like Vieira's, which is an old-school jiu-jitsu style, it takes a while to get that kind of style going. A lot of times in the first round it doesn't work. As opponents start wearing down, you start positionally getting takedowns earlier in the round, then it starts working. When he took him down at the end of the first round, Pejota had time to get up, and he knew he could stall if he ended up in bad position. When Vieira started getting the takedown early in round 2, that's a long time to deal with this guy on top of you, putting pressure, taking the energy out of you, and eventually got him in the arm triangle with, half a minute left in the second round. But the takedowns really started working in round 2. Transitions really started working in round 2. A lot of times with these old school guys, they have to get the takedown early in the round. Getting it late, because it's positional, pass guard, position, submit. It's not a Japanese fly for a leg lock kind of style. It doesn't really work that way. So you need a lot of time, and as soon as you start working round 2, I figured, all right, he's got time now, and he was able to get it done. Great job by him. Volkan Oezdemir versus Ilir Latifi. Volkan Oezdemir winning by knockout in the second round. As soon as he got the timing on this, it was over. Ilir Latifi got a brief takedown, side control, was able to make it interesting early on, but Ilir Latifi has never been great at keeping his striking clean and precise at all. That's not really his style anyway, but he's a big dude. And as his fight started going, his hands started dropping, he started breathing heavily. He's the kind of guy who can go in and throw you around like a powerlifter, maybe land a big punch, but he can't keep the technique going long enough to avoid the power punches of a striker like Oezdemir. So Oezdemir Well, as soon as he got Ilir Latifi's timing, it seemed like he did that at the exact same moment Ilir Latifi's gas started going out on him. So Ilir Latifi starts getting tired, and Volkan Ozdemir starts getting his timing and landing power shots. Put that combination together, and it's all over. Volkan Ozdemir is an aggressive fighter. His style is based entirely on his ability to get punches going, and as he does that, his confidence builds. And it can be good or bad, is that when he can't get that, it's hard for him to win fights. If he can't get that, it's easy for him to win fights. There's almost no middle ground with Volkan Ozdemir. He's a front runner. If he were a football team, he's the one that scores 20 points, 30 points in the first quarter and then has to hang on at the end. He's that kind of guy. Once momentum works in his favor, that's how he wins. He's a momentum fighter. And toward the end of the first round, that's when he had momentum, and he never really let it go. He never really let it go once he had it. But also, good timing on his shots, good power punches. Ilir Latifi really didn't have an answer past that takedown in the first round, and it was all him. Gargery versus Humberto Bandanay. Gargery just hit harder. Bandanay able to get the takedown sometimes, able to kind of stay in it, but it looked like a man versus boy kind of fight. And what I mean by that is Gargery just hit way harder, stayed in the pocket, good left hook, cut Bandanay early. But it looked like Bandanay just couldn't physically keep up. In the firefights, when both throwing punches, Bandanay looked like the smaller guy, the weaker guy. It looked like a young guy versus a guy with man muscle and man strength. And Gargery, not just good combinations, I liked his accuracy as well, but Bandanay had the UFC experience. Gargery, of course, making his UFC debut. Bandanay, the more experienced guy, but I thought physically and I don't want to say emotionally, but it seems like Gargery was the bully, was the one pushing him around with power shots. And Bandanay, to his credit, stayed in there, made it a very entertaining fight, but could not win rounds, lost all 3 rounds to all 3 judges. So it was about his inability, in my opinion, to physically keep up. That was the problem. Vicente Luque versus Mike Perry, kind of the fans' main event. Mike Perry came out slinging bombs. Couple things really stand out to me. Number one is, remember, I knew who won before I watched it because I had to watch it today. I thought Mike Perry may have won the first 2 rounds. I definitely thought he won the first round. The second round, a couple things stood out to me. Mike Perry was landing big punches. Vicente Luque was starting to figure him out, but I don't know if he had figured him out enough to win the round yet. But, big factor here, Mike Perry was bleeding so badly, very, very early, even before the nose break. He was cut on the left side of his head. He was bruised up. He was welted up. He was sliced up off punches that were good, but not. Mike Perry was throwing big bombs. Vicente Luque was throwing crisp, sharp punches that were accurate, but every time it hit him, it would really affect Mike Perry. And that's one of those things, whenever you're calling a fight, obviously striking damage is the number 1 criteria. The problem is certain guys don't wear damage well. Michael Chandler stands out to me. When I called his fights in Bellator, he would take a couple punches and he'd just be a complete mess. I remember the second fight he had with Eddie Alvarez, very, very close fight, back and forth, who knows who won it. Eddie Alvarez looks like he just got out of bed. And Chandler looked totally beat up. Benson Henderson, when he fought Mike, same thing. Benson Henderson looked fine. And it's just Chandler's a messy bleeder. He just cuts easily, he swells easily, he bleeds easily. And Mike Perry, I thought, in the middle of round 2 looked awful. He looked way worse than the punches he was taking, I thought, would have led me to believe. So, a close second round. To me, it all hinges. You definitely give Vicente Luque the third round. You definitely give Mike Perry the first round. That second round is where it all hinges, and I think Mike Perry may have landed the bigger punches, but every time Luque touched him, it seemed like he welted up or swelled and bled really badly. So I think that maybe in the minds of the judges gave Vicente Luque that second round. Whether he deserves it or not, I don't know. I'm sure you guys can discuss it. But that's what I was thinking as I was watching it. Remember, I knew Luque won the second round. But I thought, man, Mike Perry's landing some big punches. And Luque is landing some sharp stuff. But every time he did, it was like a bomb went off in his face. Mike Perry's a lot of scar tissue, doesn't wear damage well. Of course, the broken nose has to get that fixed. We'll see how that affects his style. Because Mike Perry is not the kind of guy who can walk forward without confidence and be successful. He has to walk forward like nothing can hurt me. I'm fine. Nothing's going to stop me on Mike Platinum Perry. He has to have that kind of confidence. He's not a defensive specialist, to say the least. Not a lot of head movement. Usually pretty easy to hit and figure out. He just has to wade through a lot of punches to get his style going. And if it's, I'm worried about my nose the rest of my career, that's going to be tough. We'll see. He's a tough dude. We'll see how it works out for him. But Vicente Luque, split decision win over Mike Perry. Valentina Shevchenko Liz Carmouche, it looked like Liz Carmouche was shadowboxing the whole time. I know some people were saying it was the worst women's title fight of all time. I wouldn't say it's that bad. But Valentina Shevchenko, a level better than Liz Carmouche, and Liz Carmouche content to stay on the outside and not really land. I mean, she was throwing combinations and punches. It looked like she was shadowboxing part of the time. And Shevchenko stepped in well when she needed to. There was no aspect of the fight where she wasn't better. Liz Carmouche, I know afterwards said she wants a trilogy. No way. No way. Shevchenko just went past her. Shevchenko is just the best 125-pounder in the world. Number 2, I think, is Ali McFarlane. It's funny, I think number 2 isn't in the UFC at all. But we go back to the entire history of women's MMA. It's always been that way. It's always been the champ and everybody else. 115 in the UFC is the only division in the UFC where the title's kind of up for grabs. You don't know who's going to win in any particular. Of course, Joanna Jędrzejczyk was an excellent champ, but of course, Rose Namajunas beat her. And then you have, not necessarily a revolving door, but interesting, compelling challengers. We don't have that at 25. We don't have that at 35. We certainly didn't have it at 45 in the UFC. What is interesting in the UFC are the champ versus champ matches. Obviously, Shevchenko versus Nunes, Nunes versus Cyborg. Those are exciting. It's hard to build divisions around dominant champs. If you look at the whole history of MMA, starting at Gina Carano right in the beginning, it was Gina and everybody else. Then it was Cyborg and everybody else. Then it was Ronda and everybody else. Then it was Nunes and everybody else. Then it's Shevchenko and everybody else. It's hard to build compelling divisions. And right now, Shevchenko unquestionably on top. Unquestionably on top at 125. The hard part isn't just beating her, but finding competition and finding challengers that are exciting. That's going to be the hard part. 25, 35, 45. Now that Cyborg's gone, of course, it's kind of, a toss-up at 45. But 35 and 25, it's the champ and everybody else. And what you have to sell me as a fan is the next challenger might win. And I can't think of anybody right now in the UFC who gives Shevchenko a tough match. At 135, I don't see anybody right now giving Nunes a tough match. It's just right now, that's the state of those divisions. So anyway, quick wrap-up. I'll be previewing the next UFC tomorrow.